Welcome everyone. A few new faces tonight. It's lovely. We have been talking about, we asked people in the group to submit questions or topics that they were interested in being covered. And there were two actually about taking Buddhism into the workplace. And we spoke about that last week, and this week I'll just finish up. And I began by talking about like what is Buddhism, what does that mean, and basically just narrowed it down to the Eightfold Noble Path. Most people, I think, that have had contact with Buddhism are familiar with this terminology. There's the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Noble Path. And there are three components in the Eightfold Noble Path. Two of them are a wisdom component. Three of the factors are a morality component, and the final three are a meditation practice component. And we talked mostly last week about the morality component and some about the meditation component. And tonight I'd actually like to talk about an area that we often encounter or can encounter in the workplace, and certainly can encounter in any other area of our life. And that is dealing with people that are more challenging for us, more difficult for some reason. And there's some very practical, beautiful teachings that the Buddha gives about this aspect that we all experience in our lives, be it in the workplace, in a work setting, in a social setting, in a family setting, in a neighborhood setting. And really, the advice that the Buddha is giving us is all encompassing. It really encompasses the entire Eightfold Noble Path. It has a wisdom component, a morality component, and meditative practice component. And the first thing that I'd like to say about working with people that for some reason they're causing us to have reactions. There's the Buddha's advice is really two-pronged. The first prong is working with those attitudes within ourselves, the inner transformation part, and that's what we'll talk mostly about tonight. And the second prong is a little bit more practical, and it's having some just deciding and figuring out what might be some skillful, useful communication. But the first area to look at is just internally, inside. And it's very clear in the Buddha's teachings that we all, all of the problems in our lives are coming from inside of us. They're coming from three unwholesome roots. An unwholesome root of greed, an unwholesome root of ill will, and an unwholesome root of delusion, ignorance, confusion. And the first thing to really that I would like to drive home and hope that people will get on board. It's different. It's not what we always hear. But when something is challenging for us externally, some kind of interaction, some kinds of relationships, some kinds of situations, the fact is the Buddha is teaching us that the problem arises here, inside the heart. This is where ill will arises. Ill will is there. Ill will is arising. Believe it or not, things aren't in the order that we think they are. And then we've got this ill will and we find somewhere to park it. And we think that it's coming from out there, but it's coming from in here, and we've, just used this situation, this person to as a conduit, as a target of our ill will. And if you take that on board, it is what the Buddha is teaching. If you take that on board, it's it can be a stretch, but as you really contemplate it and really come to accept it, it's one of the most empowering teachings. And this is the whole point. The Buddha is saying that if we clean up here, we're good to go. We will not suffer. If we truly purify our hearts and minds. And so I just want to encourage everyone to really contemplate that. This is not hard for me now, because I've been a nun for 10 years. And so it's an incredible vehicle. And so I know this is true because I've been living in community, and the community that I was just in California, the nuns change like slightly from year to year, and there was always someone where I parked my ill will, and I just watched that, and I watched it change, and I watched it, suddenly this person is where I'm funneling my ill will, and I'm thinking that, it would be so great here if they didn't live here. and then they would move, and I would just park my ill will on someone else. I just saw it. So that's a great privilege for me. Like, I know that what I'm saying is true. I know it because the Buddha says it, but I also know it from my own experience. There's another amazing thing that can happen when you're a nun, because your life gets quite simplified and almost controlled and streamlined. And I can remember early on, still in white, still in Anagarika, and I was living with two nuns near Ottawa, and I totally remember this. One day we're sitting all together and we're eating in silence. It's what we do. We're eating our meal, and this is early days for me, and I'm just like, this is the best. I love this life. I love these women. It's incredible. It's amazing food. And the very next day, 24 hours later, nothing has changed. Nothing. I'm in the exact same spot, eating very similar food. Like, if they say, seriously, if they moved, or I don't know, I was just livid with anger. And it was just wonderful, like a wonderful teaching. Like, what has changed? One thing, my mind, So these are wonderful experiences that you get to have when you're in robes. But if you really get honest with yourself, you'll realize lots of times we wake up and the ill will is there, and then we just and we're so rational. We want a story, and we want it to all make sense. So then, lo and behold, something happens, someone says something, and then that's why I'm upset. And we're not realizing, I was upset. I came into it with that. Anyway, so this is a very clear teaching from the Buddha in the numerical discourses. There's several of these. There's 5 of these books, 5 of these collections. It's amazing how much there is of the Buddhist teachings reported. It's just stunning. It's, it's about this much, and which is wonderful. And not just, these are translated from the Pali language, a language that's quite related to Sanskrit, but there's also, most of these suttas have also been preserved in Chinese. So there's lots of reason to take stock, and that it's quite valid that the Buddha did say this stuff. And in the numerical discourses, just so that you hear it from the Buddha, mendicants, there are these two conditions for the arising of ill will. And believe it or not, it's not your husband, it's not the irritating, there's two, the mark of the repulsive, and we'll talk about that, and careless attention. These are the two conditions for the arising of ill will. So the mark of the repulsive is what we'll get to talk about tonight. That and careless attention. So you're not sort of watching what you're paying attention to. You're just haphazard, careless. You're not realizing that what you pay attention to actually can make a total difference to your life, to your mood, to your feeling of worth, etc., etc., etc. So one is careless attention, and the other is this mark of the repulsive, and that's really these are almost a mark of the repulsive is almost an example of careless attention. It's where we have the tendency, if something is a little bit irritating, then we tend to focus on it. This is the mark of the repulsive, that you notice, boy, it chews so loud, and then before you know it, that's all you hear is, and we do this, and we don't realize, oh, I could also be thinking about, all of this particular person that happens to be a loud chewer. You can be thinking about all of their generosity. You can be thinking about all the ways that they are a good friend, and this is that careless attention, careful attention. So when something's beginning to irritate you, the Buddha is saying, you actually have a choice. You can continue going down that road, or you can, put on a brake, like, back up and turn and start paying attention to the qualities in that person that are beautiful, and putting the attention on the mark of the beautiful. And this is just incredible. I mean, we don't talk about this. Like, wow, I can actually, make a choice about what I'm filling my mind with. It's not just that I'm like this sitting duck and just everything, I'm not helpless. I've got agency. Very beautiful, powerful teaching. So this is that inner transformation. So this whole idea of careful attention, this whole idea of I'm not just passive in the perceptions that are coming in and that are arising in my mind. The Buddha is saying we can actually play with our perception. It's incredible. And this whole idea of, oh my gosh, ill will is arising in here, not out there. So this playing with the perception, you realize, you buy into that when you realize, oh, my perceptions, that's what they are. They're my perceptions. They're not accurate, internal representation of the real world. we tend to think that I'm seeing, I see the mountains and that's exactly what they're like. No, I'm seeing the mountains through my own filter. If someone's an artist, they look at the mountain one way. If someone's a rock climber, they look at the mountain another way. If someone's a geologist, they're literally seeing a different mountain because their perceptions have been conditioned in a different way. So this is so liberating to realize, oh, these are just my perceptions. This isn't exactly this person, the loud chewer. That's actually my perception. If we lined up a bunch of chewers, they might actually not be a loud chewer. These are just our perceptions. It's very liberating. And then that we can play with our perceptions. And so if we're going to do an inner transformation with something that we're finding difficult, challenging, we must play with our perceptions and try and steer the mind away from the things that are fueling the aggravation, the frustration, the irritation. So I want to now branch out to wonderful sutta, still in the numerical discourses. And this is in Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses, it's in the book of fives. The numerical discourses are, there's a book of ones, and then a book of twos, a book of threes, a book of fours, all the way up to 11. And it was just a memory aid. It was a teaching technique that the Buddha used. I think there's 3 things that were really important. There's 5 kinds of people in the world. So this is in the book of fives, and it's one of the chief disciples of the Buddha, Sariputta, is giving this teaching, and he's giving this teaching to other monks about how to remove resentment. It's a really great sutta, and a teaching technique Jesus used a lot, the Buddha used a lot, and his disciples used a lot, was using similes. So the Sariputta has these similes in this 5 ways to remove resentment, and he's definitely getting very specific with the monks about this idea of playing with your perception. So the first example is someone who's, another monk that is got some poor behavior, bodily misconduct is what's called, but verbally very pure. And Sariputta is just saying, don't pay a lot of attention to the things that are, don't pay attention to the mark of the repulsive. Pay attention to the things that are pure and noteworthy. And then the simile is that you find a rag, and you spread out the rag, and then you find the part of the rag that's not yet got a lot of holes in it, and you cut off that part, and you keep that part, and that's the part that you use. And this is because in the time of the Buddha, cloth was very, very, very hard to come by and very expensive. So there were some monks that did this practice of being rag robe wearers, and they actually even have cloth that had been wrapped, a corpse had been wrapped in, and that sort of thing. It was very difficult to find cloth. So that simile was, really resonant with them. The second example is just the flip. Someone who's got good, bodily conduct, but not so good verbally. It's the same teaching. Pay attention to the part that's not irritating, to the part that's lovely. And that example is the simile is quite powerful. Someone's really, really thirsty, and they've done this big trip in the heat, and they come to a pond that's covered with algae and has water plants in it, and they just dive into the pond, and then with their hands they just clear away the algae and clear away the water plants, and then they and then they can drink, and they can bathe, and then they get out and refresh. The next one is, okay, so someone doesn't have very good, a monk doesn't have very good bodily conduct, doesn't have very good verbal conduct, but from time to time, there's an opening in their mind, and they're placid, calm. And the teaching, the simile there is so graphic. It's the Sariputta is comparing it to, okay, you're walking along, it's really hot, this is in India, right? It's really hot and dusty. These are things that would the listeners would be, yeah, that happens all the time. This is very relevant to their life. And you come across a puddle full of mud, and you realize you're so thirsty. You realize if you scoop it with your hands, you're gonna disturb the mud. So you get down on all fours. This is a simile. So there's barely anything noteworthy in this person, right? From time to time, there's an opening of the mind. Like, think of, sometimes we have relationships like that, someone's really difficult, but then, there's these times where, you got something in common, you got something that you like to do the same, or some hobby or something, and you can connect. It's kind of like that. So you get down on all fours, very humbling, down on all fours, and you scoop the water like a cow, you get down and drink from the puddle. This is how much we can overcome, and that we can play with our perceptions. And then the fourth example is not very good bodily contact, not very good verbal contact, from time to time their mind doesn't open, it's basically, and the simile, the instructions that Sariputta says is just really to be like, bless my heart, I can't find anything, about it, and bless them, like, wow, rough, and we know people like that, right? And so the simile is really powerful. It's this, it's like, again, ancient India, there's one village and there's another village, and this person is traveling from one village to the other village, and they're, kind of halfway, and they get terribly, terribly sick. And there's no bus, there's no Uber, they're sort of stranded, and you happen to walk along and see them. And he's saying that you want the heart to just rise up, be like, not to wish ill will on this person. Oh my gosh, the situation is quite bleak, it's quite dire, and may it work out for them, that hopefully compassion will rise up in your heart. Like, gosh, it's, I've had that, sometimes, like, I'm finding someone really challenging, and then I think, I'm just with them a little bit, they're with themselves all the time. And that might be hard. You just have to figure out what you need to do to start to have a heart that opens, and that has some tenderness and concern for their well-being. Very, very amazing sutta. And then the fifth is someone that is pure in their body, their body contact, pure in their verbal conduct, their mind often opens. And I love that Sariputta includes this, because again, it drives home the point that ill will actually arises here. This person is like meticulous, wonderful, like, you really can't find fault, but we will. because that's what the mind does. And that's why I think Sariputta is including that. And so when that happens, you just realize, oh my gosh, I've got ill will is arising. And you turn the mind to the mark of the beautiful. You start to focus on, this is ridiculous. This person is, excellent in this way, and in this way, and in this way. And then you actually go a step farther and realize they're actually, a model, they're a mentor, they're an example. And you begin to derive inspiration. Wonderfully practical teachings. That's Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Fives, Sutta 162, 5 ways of removing resentment.
Is there a simile for the last one? No.
Oh yeah, there is. It's that you're traveling along and you're really hot and you're tired and you're thirsty and you come to a clear, beautiful pool and you just go in it, and derive refreshment and nourishment. Thanks, I forgot. Yeah. So just really taking these teachings to heart and really realizing, oh my gosh, try and watch irritation and try and watch where it's coming from. And then you can use some of these teachings to not fuel it and not let it, snowball, but nip it in the bud. There's just the power of our perception. In the Dhammapada, which is a collection of very pithy, wise sayings, early on, actually verse 3 through 5, the Buddha says, he abused me, attacked me, defeated me, robbed me. For those carrying on like this, hatred does not end. She abused me, attacked me, defeated me, robbed me. For those not carrying on like this, hatred ends. Hatred never ends through hatred. By non-hatred alone does it end. This is an ancient truth. What's incredible as you start to read the Buddha's teachings is the Buddha is very clear. He didn't make any of them up. They're not from his mind. He saying over and over that he rediscovered. These are just truths. This is an ancient truth. And we know, we look at the world, you look at Gandhi, you look at Martin Luther King, these are leaders that knew that. Nonviolent resistance. Hatred is never overcome through hatred, only through non-hatred. And there's a incredible movement within the justice system, which needs a movement, restorative justice, that's understanding this. And I listened to an NPR interview. It was actually just 2 people telling their story. It was short, 3 minutes, and it was about a woman named Mary Johnson. These people are alive. This is a true story, and it's current. And she's 59 now, and the other person speaking was a man named O'Shea Israel. And what happened about 20 years ago, 18 years ago, is O'Shea Israel was just 16. And this was in Minneapolis. He was involved in drugs and in a gang. And he's at a party, and there's another man there, 20 years old. And they get into this big fight. Doesn't even say what over. And O'Shea shoots him, and he dies. And Mary Johnson is that boy's mother. And O'Shea is sentenced to 14 years in prison and restorative justice. Mary Johnson, after about a dozen years really, really wants to see him. So she goes to visit him, and during that visit, she talks about, he wasn't a monster. He had become a monster, he abused me, he attacked me, and this is what happens. So she's face to face with this, and she said, and he's not a boy anymore, and he's not this confused child that, was growing up and surrounded by violence. He's a young man. And she gets to tell O'Shea about her son, what he was like. Very difficult for O'Shea. Very difficult for him to realize. It goes so much deeper what happened that night when he shot that man who was just 20. And then Mary breaks down crying, just remembering her son and talking about her son. And this gets talked about in this interview with the two of them. And O'Shea is like, the only thing, he hugs her and he holds her and she leaves. And then, of course, it's in prison, he has to go back, and she's just standing there. I just hugged the man that murdered my son. But this was the beginning of, they've become, this interview is so powerful. He's out of prison now and they live next door to each other. And basically, he's her son now. And she talks about, I never got to see my son graduate, but O'Shea is in college now. And I hope I get to see him graduate. And they're both there in this interview. And she says when he hugged her, all of the anger left. She just completely forgave him, and he became completely human. And they live right next door to each other. And O'Shea talks. He's so in touch with. He said she's completely forgiven me, and it's allowing this process of me forgiving myself. I'm not there yet, but her forgiveness of him is so powerful that it's actually opening the door for him to actually forgive himself. And her love of him is what is like totally calling him higher, that she believes in him, going to college, he's clean off of drugs. And yeah, the interview ends with O'Shea saying, I love you, lady. And there's a pause, and then she says, I love you too, son. It just like, this is the potential of goodness, of wholesomeness, of understanding that we can make choices, we can work with our perceptions, and our hearts can be so big, and there's so much power in it. Like, the bigness of Mary Johnson's heart is completely changing the life of O'Shea, who killed her son. It's just stunning. Really, really stunning. I almost don't want to do the second part about like communication. When you can figure it out. There are times where it's really appropriate, and there are certain situations where you can try, and then you can try, and then you realize that actually isn't going to work. And so you just need to focus on the inner transformation. And it is worth trying. I know a situation where somebody is actually the child of a grown child, in their 30s, and their father's very difficult to communicate with. He just shuts people down, he dismisses them, he gets angry, he it's just, and we know people like that. And so she's realized there are some things she wants to try to communicate to him, and she realized she can't. So she's decided she's going to write a letter, short letter, just a couple of the things that are the most important for her. And preparing, I'm gonna give you a letter. And you can read it or not read it. You know, just that, I mean, there are different ways, because there are some situations where people. They are difficult to communicate with, and they're, you know, we probably all know some people that they are not necessarily operating the way that many other people are. You know, there's certain things they just can't hear, can't deal with. So there are different ways to try and come at it. And you can try once, you can try twice, you can try another thing, and then sometimes you just have to realize that that's actually not going to work. Sometimes it makes things more tense, more complicated, more difficult. In which case you have to do even more work with the inner transformation. It'd be better to abandon with Mary Johnson. I'll end there. And if it will just have a short time, if anyone has any comments or questions or situations, because we're going to do more deep dive. So we'll do that in a couple minutes. With our size of our group. Okay. So just a couple minutes if anyone wants to ask a question or make a comment.
I heard us saying once, and it was something along the lines of the things you dislike in someone else is a reflection of yourself. Right, like I was understanding what you were saying, where if you find something or someone in your environment, it's come from within yourself. But is it the exact thing that you see in them?
There's that expression, if you spot it, you got it. There is something to that. And there is, and that can be a wonderful area of investigation, not necessarily always, but often there's something that we maybe haven't admitted to ourselves about ourselves, or we're not completely accepting about ourselves. Yeah, and that can be a useful area of investigation. And likewise the other way, when you really, really admire something in someone, often it's because that actually is inside of you and it hasn't fully developed. Very, very true. There's a wonderful book called Inner Goal about that process. And you actually almost sometimes, especially if it's like a mentor or some kind of senior or junior or a spiritual teacher, you actually are giving them your goals for a time to carry. And then if they're a really responsible teacher, when the time is right, they give it back. Beautiful. Let's move on to, we'll conclude tonight with there are these four emotions that the Buddha said, these are the ones that we should be cultivating in our lives. These are the ones that are most beneficial for us. And the first one is benevolence, the opposite of ill will, love kindness. The second is compassion, and the third is rejoicing in the beauty and the successes and the joys of others. And the fourth is equanimity. And so throughout the month, we always conclude with one of those meditations. And when it's the third week, we do the third, called Brahma Viharas, like the divine abodes. And so today is the third week, so we'll do Mudita. You want to do or? Sure. So what we're going to share is, we're actually gonna all share, we can, and there's a few new people tonight, so if people are comfortable to share their name. And then you just share, little or big, something quite fresh in your life that is a cause for uplift of your heart, cause of joy. And then we will all be, sympathetic joy. We will all be resonating with joy as you share. So you'll be sharing your joy and we'll be experiencing mudita, rejoicing.
And the near enemy is envy. So if envy arises, you do your best to transform it.
Oh, oops, you're gonna start, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my happiness is this weekend I'm going to a 50th wedding anniversary of very good friends of mine. So very happy for them.
My happiness is gonna sound odd. I was in the woods today and I fell, I tripped on a root and I think I like bruised or cracked a rib. And I'm realizing this is like really a good thing. Because it means I can't do a bunch of stuff and already I've shared it already with Anna Sarah and some of it and just I'm just seeing that I'm growing because I'm being able to receive. This is like a weakness for me, but I'm actually being able to receive. And it feels so good, the kindness and the understanding and the support. And normally I'm like, no, I'm fine, I'm not fine. and it just feels good that I'm definitely different. So it's really encouraging for me. Yeah. And can we pass it to you, Anna Sarah?
Sure.
Great.
I guess what's freshest is I just had a conversation with a nun in Ontario, and she's in a very good situation. She's a solitary character, and she's at a monastery where she's alone a lot of the time in the woods. So I'm really happy for her.
Monica.
Yes, my name's Monica, and my rejoicing or my happiness is my friend Amanda coming in the valley. You can play outside like fairies.
Fairies.
Wow. Thank you. I'm Amanda, and my spark has yesterday, the day before, and today I've just been by the river enjoying the sun and just like receiving the beauty and just allowing that to come through. And so that's my joy.
Nothing is popping up per se, but I'm in content last few weeks, so I think it's a good thing. I'll stick with that.
I'm Nicole, and for a while I was feeling a little lost or unsure of what I was doing. And then the last few nights I've been going for a walk along the river, and it's just very obvious to me that I'm in the right place.
That river is a good thing. Justin's raspberries are a very good thing. But my most recent joy happened yesterday. Over the last 4 years, I've had this very strong urge every once in a while to find a picture that I drew of my mother just before she died. And I couldn't find it. Like, it was driving me crazy. It's like I couldn't have given it to anybody. Where on earth is this picture? It's not where I expected it to be. So I had to go through a lot of stuff yesterday, and I found it. And I was like, I'm very, very happy about that.
My happiness is I recently booked a trip to see old friends in Squamish for a weekend. And it'll be my first time for 5 full days away from my kids and since they were born. And I'm really excited.
I'm Scott. I had a recent joyous occasion. Just this morning, I was able to share some music with Ayahimsa and Anagarika Sarah. So we did that this morning in a very lovely place, and I'm very excited and grateful for that.
I'm Michaela, and I have happiness from the last 2 days because I spent with my friend. She was frustrated from the work. A nice day. We make together a good day. And yeah, she came to home very frustrated. I said, let's go to river and let's go for some tour or something. And she said, no. After yes, and she was so happy. And after I was happy from her, yeah, it's like sharing happiness. Yeah. We enjoy like time together. Very nice. Yeah. That moment.
My happiness is in the last almost 8 weeks, I've had constant company, which has quite depleted me in every aspect. But it's over, the last 4 years since my accident, I haven't seen anyone or been able to share anything. And everyone's saying, oh, Marilyn, you look so good. I'm so happy for you. And you're coming along. And it kind of uplifted me because I was starting to crash because I was so tired. And so it was just wonderful to have them come and share that experience, and I could welcome them into my home again and share my happiness of being here and moving along the path and sharing things with my friends that they haven't heard about me. So create a lot of happiness.
Silke.
Last night I had the chance to walk up on the dike on that lovely path, and saw all the shooting stars that are still coming down from the, what's it called?
Perseus.
Yes, so it was just really nice and dark, and it was quite nice and warm, and then there were lots of shooting stars, so that was really nice.
Yeah, so I am Amélie, and I had a very hard time since few weeks, so I'm taking care of myself a lot, like spiritually and everything. So I have a lot of joy for that, and I am meeting a lot of people since I'm doing that. And thank you, Silka, for tonight, and all of you. Thank you.
Rich.
Hi, I'm Rich. Yes, I had a pretty busy weekend. So last night just had a bit of time, sit out on the balcony, enjoy the sun, and kind of put down a few ideas to enjoy the rest of the summer and the rest of the weather. And yeah, that's about it, really.
Right. And online, Susan, can we start with you? Susan? You there? All right. Okay, let's do Laura.
Hi, my name is Sulara. Today my sister is visiting from Ontario, and one of my friends, I've been friends for 20 years, Vince, is visiting me too. So I'm feeling very happy about it.
Beautiful. And David? You're muted.
Yes, one of the joys that I have just recently experienced is I got acquainted with a neighbor. She happens to have quite a few avocado trees. We're in Florida, and I have starfruit trees. So we've been exchanging fruit this week. and it's been great. I have an endless supply of avocados, and she has an almost endless supply of star fruit.
It's so great. Yeah. And Kamasiri? Hey, yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I'm happy just to get home and do my meditation on a daily basis. So yeah, usually good. Yes.
And Buddha?
Boudica.
Boudica, sorry. Boudica.
Hi, I'm Buddhika, and I'm so happy I can come back to meditation group after 1 year. And my younger son will be coming home after his 3rd year, exhausting exams, and I'm going to pick him up. So I'm happy for that too.
Yes, wonderful. And Susan, are you there? Okay.
May the merit of our practice be shared with all sentient beings, named and unnamed.
Charlotte,
Louise,
Ariel,
Ian,
Gary,
Nottingham.
Ariel. May all beings be well and happy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.